Hey, it is of course Robert here from Absolute Body Systems with another video to you today, and this one is all about what our ancestors used to eat. What did we used to eat days gone by? So let's just delve back in history a little bit and talk about this, shall we? So first of all, we had hunters, and the hunters basically killed or fished for food, and they lived off fat or protein by what they killed or what they fished for. They had long stretches of days, sometimes weeks without food. And because they had no food, basically they lived off the fat stores that were stored within the liver. So if they were short of energy, the liver basically, what happened was the liver chopped up the fatty acids into two carbon fragments. And these two carbon fragments can be known as acetyl-CoA or ketones. Ketones you're probably more aware of, you've probably heard of. But they didn't know what a carb was, a carbohydrate was. Then on the other side, living along with, you had gatherers. And gatherers were people who collected food from the ground. They predominantly lived off carbs and proteins from fruit and vegetables. If their energy became low, they survived on glucose, which was formed within the liver. It's kind of what's known as today's vegan diet. Where they just lived off what was available around about where they were. Now the difference between the two is basically wherever you lived in the world. That's the difference between the two. Now as our ancestors evolved, basically what happened was they had they either went one or the other. They went hunters or gatherers. Very rarely did they exclusively delve into both sides of things. It really depended on where they lived. So the liver, what happened was because of this, the liver developed two separate pop-off valves. And these two pop-off valves were to protect it from excess energy, because we didn't want to store too much body fat, just enough for be able to run away or to survive or whatever it may be. So these two separate pop-off valves were formed over evolution to protect it from excess energy. One was for carbs and one was for fats, depending on whether you were a hunter or whether you were a gatherer. Now as humans, as we began to irrigate and farm, we realised what irrigation and farming was. What happened was we became omnivores, and what the problem that happened there was that we started to eat fats and carbs as one. So because that happened, remember the two pop-off valves we spoke about in the liver, what happened was they both became, the mitochondria both became overloaded. And when they become overloaded, this is a classic classic environment to become overworked and to lead to chronic and metabolic diseases. So generally speaking, the body can survive off carbs or it can survive off fats for energy, and it really depends on your background. So a lot of Scottish people, as an example, where we live, pretty much lived off fish. Yes, they ate meat as well, but pretty much lived off fish. This is a classic example of a vegetarian diet, or pescatarian rather. So there's no right or wrong with this. There's just things that go back in history. And if you're looking at the aspect in terms of health, then it's maybe perhaps worth researching a little bit more yourself to understand it. But those are the two differences between hunters and gatherers, and then they became hunter-gatherer to what we know as an omnivore. And this obviously then creates some problems sometimes because you're overloading the two pathways, the two metabolic pathways within the liver. That's just a quick little background for you. Next time I'm going to be talking all about how we moved into gourmets and how we developed our eating system in today's society. Speak to you soon. Bye.